We're doing another live stream, and I said I might be back to do another one. I already did one today. I think it was around noon. We'll see who shows up. I've been making it a habit of doing this. I haven't made any other videos in a while. I'm doing this now. I'm practicing, and it's getting easier as I go. Not that I want to jinx myself. But to do a good live stream, I think I'm going to have to employ some technical skills eventually, and maybe invest in some other stuff. Oh, by the way, thank all of you who support the channel. The link is always in the description. No pressure there. I do this for free, and in fact, I haven't even monetized the channel. Somebody asked me that a while ago, and I looked into that, and I thought, well, whatever. I may do that in the future, but that's not really what this is about. This is about helping people out. It's about communication. It is about education, and it is about freedom. Okay, and in the sense that you are free mentally. You may be in a physical prison in the sense that you are in this world, or you were trapped in a body that is temporarily under the tyranny of flesh. You may be, experiencing the tyranny of gang stalking, and that is it's a type of prison. It's a type of oppression. I've talked about that a lot. That, in my opinion, I believe it's demonic oppression. And even though you might be getting harassed by a group of people, or maybe a private investigating firm, someone's trying to play God with you, or maybe you believe you're in an extended MK Ultra program. However that works, at the root, you're dealing with something spiritual, and of course we're gonna have questions. I'm gonna take suggestions from our avid participatory audience that I am so grateful to have here. We've got 5 people, and there's usually 5 right away. Sometimes it spikes up to around 20, and then it goes back down. Uh, Dublin, welcome to the live stream. She's always very avid in the comments. Anything you'd like to talk about tonight, Dublin? Welcome, Pamela. Yay, I made it live. Yes, you did. And I'll try to make it as exciting and entertaining as possible. It'll probably be a short live stream, but of course, I always say that. Sometimes I have a tendency to ramble on. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, I haven't received a response of any questions yet, and I mentioned in the earlier live stream that there are some good disguises out there. You sometimes you just don't see the perp coming. You don't have any idea that you're surrounded by malevolent individuals who have less than noble intentions. And the gang stalking crowd, well, they experience that at a higher volume. And I've experienced some things where I would have had no idea. Okay, and we're going to talk. In other words, we're getting to the topic, and that's going to be the perp. Okay, it's going to be the infiltrator, and I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. But there's 12 people out there. Welcome to the live stream, Larry. I missed you. Glad to have you on here. Dublin Fitzpatrick. Let me see. I'm sorry. Of course, I never have my glasses. Just watching the Eagles Cowboys games. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, whatever works for you. I'm not much into watching sports. Never been one of those people. And I've gotten persecuted for that. But even if I wasn't weird, which I'm gonna admit I am kind of weird, they would figure something out to make me look weird, right? So either way, it's all good now. Doesn't matter. I used to deal with that. You don't watch football? No, usually don't do that. Let's see what else is going on out there. Nope, we don't have any perps yet. No clown heads. Of course, we'll just shut them down. That's what you got to do as a targeted individual. You don't want to react. You don't want to buy into their little tactics and get excited and get emotional. You don't want to do that. You want to just shut them down. If you're dealing with directed conversations, if you're dealing with unorthodox behavior, people are trying to attack you with things you've been sensitized to, personal information, annoying little things that you've been sensitized to, obvious forms of communication for the targeted individual. And no one else seems to know. Of course, that's the trick. Um, and it works rather well. You just ignore it. You do. You have to. And you can have fun with that. You can, especially if it's one of those weird things where they're becoming obnoxious or they're acting weird. I've heard a lot of stories and I've experienced a lot of things. I've seen a lot of perpology. I've seen a lot of perps do things. I've seen a lot of extracurricular activity, and sometimes you can kind of try to feed off it. I mean, what are you going to do? Because usually it's very annoying. Usually it's on one of those days where you get hit from all angles. You're experiencing sleep deprivation. You're getting hit at work. You're getting hit here, there, and sometimes you even wonder if there's something demonic or maybe even technological going on with your physiology because you just feel that underlying tension, that underlying pressure, the anxiety, or maybe you just feel on edge. And there are mechanisms in your physical body that can do that. Of course, I'm speculating, but it seems like there's really nothing left untouched when it comes to being a targeted individual. And of course, the that whole crescendo effect, the whole menagerie around the targeted individual involves incremental things that all just add up after a while. They do, whether it's emotions, whether it's rejection, whether it's that sense of injustice that builds up when the targeted individual gets attacked, or whether you're just sitting around watching everyone else live their lives. Or maybe getting back to our topic, maybe it's the perp that agitates you. And not just because of the techniques that they are using, not just because of the covert tactics, of the malevolent activities, of the directed conversation, of the insulting, rude behavior that you're used to dealing with as a target individual, but just the fact that they're so damn sneaky, you know. It's always been a topic for targeted individuals to try to figure out, how many people really know about this stuff anyway. You know, how many people can you think about as a targeted individual that you've seen later come out of the closet that you would have had no idea that they were a perp? You would have had no clue that they were sneaking up on you, infiltrating into your life. But as luck would have it, there they are with their fangs deep in your backside. Yep, I've got the scars to prove it. I'm going to look in the comments, see if anybody else is talking about this. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway. I've had those experiences, and sometimes as a target, especially because you're experiencing isolation, because you're experiencing forms of deprivation. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, and you got to be thankful for what you have. But every now and again, you have a tendency to stew. Every now and again, you have a tendency to go back down memory lane. You're triggered. You end up in that what I like to joke around as that the Highlander flashback. Anybody remember that old show that used to be? Do they still play that, by the way? That Duncan MacLeod, yeah, there can only be one, and of course they're running around cutting each other's heads off, and it's real weird. But that guy would, he would be triggered by something, maybe sitting back, looking at a campfire or something, and he would be transported back into his memory, back down memory lane into the labyrinth of his many experiences as the guy had lived quite a long time. And he just kind of would haze out and start to remember, I experienced those things. As a target who's experienced gang stalking for decades, I often do that. And one of the things that I think about from time to time are those people that would say the things, that foreshadow stage that you might experience as a target, little comments here and there that later become more significant. And of course, with that question that I asked, who really knows about this kind of thing? Well, they did, right? There's no question in your mind now that they were involved. And you have to have a strict criteria. You can't just be paranoid. You can't just start pointing fingers with all the things that, of course, targeted individuals are sensitized to. The methodology is genius. It's very scientific, and it's easy for people to start reading into things. You have to be careful. And with the strict criteria, though, looking back, you can see that people were involved, that they had that knowledge. And now they're out there living their lives, of course, masquerading as regular citizens, but different. Oh, yes, you do. And I would imagine that you've experienced that quite a bit as a target. You've seen people attack. You've played the little games. There they are. And with strict criteria, of course, you have to be careful. You've noticed them. And now, well, they're just trying to play it off. All right. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, are having a good day, are you? Oh, keep up the fight. Yeah. And you know better. It's sarcasm. They're good at that. That's one of the things that perps do very well, along with their disguises. They're very sarcastic and very talented, some of them. Like I said, you'd never see them coming. And of course, if you're a target who's experienced gang stalking for any length of time, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to look back, maybe even go on Facebook or something else and look into these individuals. And there they are in their professional little walk, their menagerie, their lives, their mansions, their houses, their condos, their families. And no one knows. No one would have any idea, but you do. I'm going to go back in the comments and see what people are talking about here. Oh, they notice when I notice them. Of course, Larry. And that's one of the things that they do very well. Uh, because you have to notice them, right? That's the whole point. Really, when you think about it, a targeted individual is someone who's been awakened. I like to put those two things together because before you didn't know, right? You knew something was off. Maybe you may have experienced some things, but until you get that overt harassment that is just all encompassing and everywhere, and people come out of the closet, they're very aggressive. Well, things change, right? It becomes obvious, and it's a shock to a lot of people. And I've talked about that before, that you can have different reactions. Some people will start to question reality and start to derealize. They'll give in to disinformation. They'll start to even wonder if they're alive. They'll start to wondering if they are really in reality, the Twilight Zone effect, or maybe the Truman effect. But it happens. But the whole point is that it was there the whole time. You know, it was there all along, and you were hanging out with them. You know, they were your friends, your family members, your coworkers, the mailman. You know, people at your grocery store, at the local convenience store, maybe at your college. And well, things are different now. Yeah. Well, let's see what else is in the comment section. Neurodivergent says that he went through a time where he felt dead inside. I think that's a common experience for targeted individuals. Welcome to the live stream, by the way. Um, yeah, and that happens. That's a really good illustration, by the way. because that's one of the whole ideas of these things, to kind of just pick away at you, to suck the life out of the targeted individual and leave them a shell of a person, a walking corpse, you know, because I've talked about the creepier side of gang stalking. It's not necessarily that people are just getting paid. It's not necessarily that that they're getting social status or something all the time. Sometimes those things happen, but sometimes it makes you wonder exactly what they're after. What is it that motivates these people? I think some of them are literally getting more than just money, more than just a little kick of control, yanking your chain or doing other things. It's almost like they're trying to suck the life right out of you, you know. At least that's what it feels like to me, because there's an emotional reaction in some of these perps, especially when they get they get you to buy into it. They come after you, when you're weakened. When there's blood in the water, it's like sharks. They come from everywhere, and it's really hard for targeted individuals to get evidence. It seems like they know, but I've seen that. It's more than just an emotional kick. Almost. I mean, I'm speculating, right? I've heard things about vampires or psychic vampires or all those things. But I don't know. The things I've seen would make me wonder about that. And if nothing else, the psychological effects of what happens to a targeted individual, well, it's a form of murder, however you look at it. Whether someone is experiencing defamation of their reputation, or whether it's the death of their financial career, or maybe they have a child or something like that, that they're in a custody situation, right? Their dreams are murdered. All these things. It's all about death. It's all about deception. I'm not trying to be negative. We're dealing with the perp here, and they are sneaky. Of course, and as far as dealing with this topic of the perp, well, I've mentioned this probably too many times, but you do have to illustrate the fact that, well, are you really the victim as a targeted individual? Are you really the one that is being set up here? Well, kind of, right? You're experiencing the effects of harassment. You are experiencing the negative emotions involved, the isolation, the deprivation, the fear, the anxiety. But you know, what's going to happen to these guys that are after you? That's really the question. Who's really after who? That's that's really what it comes down. But and I, it's not that you have to have impure motives, but I've thought that many times. Getting back to trying to make the best of this situation. When they start acting up, when they start doing their thing, and you're just pretending like you're not noticing it, and of course the activity increases. But not to be morbid, but I have a tendency sometimes to think about that. Well, if this is the game that I have to play, if this is the role that I've kind of been chosen for, if you guys really want it that bad, well, all right. Of course, I'm not going to do anything. You're going to get me. You're gonna. But you know what? It's probably not going to work out for you in the end. Are you sure? You want it that bad? Do you? Okay. And they do. They are very persistent. They're very motivated. And I've seen it flip. I've seen it flip on them. You're a worm on a hook. And here they come. Take a big bite. Yeah. And like I said, it's not that you're trying to entice these individuals. You're minding your own business. As a targeted individual, you are moving through your salient landscape with innocent intentions. But of course, they're they're highly motivated to come after you. Let's take a look and see what's going on in the comments again. Well, it looks like Neurodivergent says, "Do you really think it's personal? Does it feel personal?" No, that's a good question. That's a good question. It depends on who you're dealing with. And it depends on the scenario, I would imagine. Of course, it's funny to ask that question because, of course, it's gonna be personal. The effects are definitely going to be personally uh, dealt with, not only for the victim but for the people doing it, which is kind of what I've been illustrating. It's going to get very personal eventually, right? No getting out of that. But that is a good question because some people are just probably doing it for money, and in that case, I would say that it's not. When a private eye or somebody who's a professional, maybe they have skills of breaking in or whatever. You know, they're not, and they're getting personal with it. There's people that I've had to deal with where I would say that it definitely wasn't personal. Okay. Um, well, the effects are going to be personal though, right? Just kind of joking around about that. But there's people who just do it for money, right? It's not personal at that point. And I've talked about that before, and I even put that in videos before where you just you get so damn desperate as a target, that, or at least you suspect that, even in a case that you have, a live stream like I do, or maybe a channel or something like that, that these people are, they're not only hacking your phone or where they're watching this stuff, right? And I've thrown the offer out there before that, if you are involved, and I'm not mad about it, I'm not gonna get my panties in a bundle. If you're out there and this is all about money for you, well, I'm gonna tell you right now, depending on what and I don't know if you guys can relate with this, but thinking about, people talk about lawsuits all the time. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a lawsuit. Well, if somebody came forward with actual information specifically about a case that involved one of you and you're stalking or whatever, and in the case that somebody was watching and you just said, well, hey man, if you want to turn on these people that have hired you, if that's the case, if that's even a possible scenario for whatever you're dealing with, well, I ain't got nothing personal. I'm not going to hold nothing against you. I'll give you half the cash. I don't care. I'm I'm smart enough to start a lawsuit. I've been in class actions before. Not that it would be a class action, right? It would probably be something else, depending on what kind of a scenario you're involved in. But you know what? I'm not mad. In fact, there's a lot of people that I know where they live. I know where they are. I know who they, are married to. I know everything about them. I know what they're doing for a living, and they were heavily involved in my scenario. And I haven't done anything to them. I haven't done one thing to any of them at all, and I could have thought about it. Definitely thought about it. So yeah, that was a good point. That was a good question. I like that. Let's take a look and see what's going on in the comments. See more here. Okay. Yeah. Well, Larry says it's way deeper than you think. Uh, yeah, I would agree with that. Let's see what else is going out there. And like I said, I'm having a hard time reading. It sucks to get old, and still haven't got some bifocals. Whatever. Pamela, I tried to hire a PI. Had the money, needed the answers. Yeah. Well, wow. Really? That's wild. I looked into a private investigator one time. They're not cheap, by the way. And when in fact, in the live stream, I was talking about some pretty weird stuff earlier today, but I looked into that. I looked into hiring one for surveillance purposes and for other things, looking into background checks. And man, and that was back, I think I was in 2017 when I looked into that. And the guy was telling me 3 to 5 grand just for a comprehensive background check, you know. He was I think ex CIA or something like that. And I was just like, wow. I don't know if I got $600. I said, and he laughed at me. The guy laughed at me. $600. That's a lot of money for, a delivery guy. I wasn't looking for a whole lot. I was just looking for some information concerning work history. And the guy was, that's going to, 3 grand. I'm like, wow, not cheap. Definitely not cheap. And Dublin Fitzpatrick says, she's just angry about what they do. Oh, of course. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Lisa Grants, I appreciate your humor. The gift of a smile and a giggle is good. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to entertain as well as educate here. And we got a question from Jesus Christ here, which of course is just a handle. I don't think he's returned yet. Um, anyway, has anyone been able to identify their gang stalkers? Yeah, there's, in fact, if you're a target out there and you've been doing this for a long time, like I said, you have to have very strict criteria. Very dangerous to assume someone knows everything. I've talked about the strategies involved in gang stalking, to where when this stuff gets hot and heavy, you might just be dealing with somebody who's got an attitude or whatever, and you're going to come to a syllogistic conclusion, and you're just going to be like, you're one of them. You're one of the perps. You're one of the gang stalkers. But you might be wrong. You know, you got to be careful. You have to really have obvious interactions that prove that someone is involved. Like, in other words, if somebody comes up to you and says, nice polka dot underwear that you were wearing last night, and you're like, oh, gee, I wonder if that's a gang stalker. Of course, not that I want anybody to know about my polka dot underwear, but that would be pretty good criteria. In other words, if they have, it's not just, it's not one of those, directed conversations that's vague, that involves the general statements that anybody can be sensitized to. I'm talking about obvious stuff. And at that point, yeah, you're going to know. Okay. Now, then you have to come up with a question of how they're involved, what's going on, what their motivations are, and all that stuff. But oh yeah, that's definitely something that people run into. Like I said, though, man, it's all about criteria. You have to be very careful. And at the end of the day, well, what are you going to do, right? I've run into a lot of people, and that's they talk about, oh, I'm into solutions. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? You got to watch out for people like that. If you're running into people like that, and that usually happens to, when you reach out and contact people who claim to be targeted individuals and later find out they weren't, one of the things you end up doing is getting kind of called out in different areas. A lot of times they'll minimize, a lot of times well, if somebody was doing that to me, I'll tell you what I would do. And of course, what happens to targets? They get provoked. You get provoked into violence. You get provoked into conversations. You get provoked into having emotional reactions. So you can be manipulated, right? And a lot of people do that. Well, I'll tell you what I'd do. And you ain't got enough bullets for all these perps. You just don't, right? I mean, what's the solution? It's tempting. I've thought about it, man. I'm human, and a lot of the things that have been done to me were real, offensive to say the least, and sometimes just downright deadly. When somebody does something to you where you're like, man, that could have really, messed my life up or ended it. Yeah, that's not something that you just brush off. Usually, you got to kind of, hand it over to the Lord and hope that He gives you peace. Because, man, I grew up around firearms. I owned my first firearm when I was 6 years old. I used to have a lot of guns. I had a few pistols, rifles, shotguns, you know. And when it gets like that and targeted individual, you're usually threatened. That street theater, a lot of it is the chain, Yankee chain, but some of it's downright scary. There are a lot of people out there that believe that people are going to try and kill them or something. And that's, you scare somebody one too many times, and you just got to watch out for that. But as far as people knowing who's involved, well, that is an interesting question, along with the fact that you're going to figure that out eventually. But when targeted individuals are approached and asked, well, who's doing this to you? Who are they? Why are you so important? Well, a lot of times targets don't know what's going on, especially the new ones, because they really don't understand what's happening, and it's coming from so many different angles. And just the whole idea that, when you get into the nomenclature of targeted individuals, well, I'm a targeted individual. Well, okay. What does that mean? And to some people, it means different things, right? Some people might just be experiencing, community harassment, or they might be a scapegoat at work or whatever. It's a type of mobbing, but the targets who are experiencing the higher forms of harassment, well, it's just crazy. It's beyond. Let's take a look at what's going on in the comments. A lot of people believe it's a family member when it's law enforcement, targeted tyranny, or or government trying to make them believe that. A lot of misdirection. It's a good point. Targeted tyranny. And you got to be careful of that. And I've talked about the fact that a lot of the stuff that comes at targeted individuals is there to misdirect them, to take their focus and distract them. It's very dangerous. A lot of targets are being provoked in that way, and you got to be careful. And you never want to accuse someone. Think about it this way, okay? That's a good point, targeted tyranny, because when you start accusing people, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to be accused, aren't you? Right? That's one of the ways that targets are provoked. Right? What's wrong with you? Boy, you sure are overreacting. What's going on? We've been worried about you. You're scaring the hell out of your wife. What what's up with what's up with the locks on the doors and the cameras and everything, man? You've been doing some meth on the side. What's going on? It opens up the target for accusations, but not only that. Is it really logical to accuse someone of something like that? I've talked about the fact that I don't remember what website it was. I don't remember who said this, but evidently, in order to kind of quell your emotional uprising when you're getting harassed, you're supposed to walk up to the gang stalkers and ask if they're all brown nosers, like they care. They don't care about that. They want you to know that you're being harassed. And if you give them any kind of reaction at all, they win. They win. They love that, right? You don't want to do, but what's the logic in that, right? If you're going to ask, are you harassing me? Are you gang stalking me? And they're like, oh, okay, you caught me. You caught me, man. I'm a perp. I'm a gang stalker. You got me. You got me red-handed. What do you want? You want a six-pack of beer? What are they going to do? Admit it? I don't know. It's just, confronting these people is just a bad idea for every reason, man. Let's take a look at this stuff, and let's see what Jesus Christ has another question here. Do you think gang stalkers are really good at hiding evidence? I have really had a hard time finding any after looking for over a year now. Well, you fit right in. You fit right in because all targeted individuals are in that same dilemma. Yes, they are. They are very good. And it's the whole scenario. And I talked about the fact that, if you knew that people were going to start doing this to you, you would have had cameras up. You would have been doing all these things. You would have had, the secret cameras and the body cams to catch them when they were doing the obvious stuff. But by the time it's over, it's too late, man. Right? And then you have the problem of explaining it. We'll say you did. We'll say, for example, you found a device. Somebody, put something, maybe in your mattress or an event in your house or something, and it was like a Bluetooth device or something that someone could use, Wi-Fi or whatever. But they got rid of the serial numbers. They got rid of everything, and there it is. It's technological, but it's crude. It's got some duct tape on it. They've been using it to torment you. It's got little speakers. Maybe you find a camera or something, which is would be harder than finding a needle in a haystack. Especially with the technology that's out there. And sometimes they don't even need that stuff. But we'll just say you found it. Okay. Now what? What are you going to do? You're in the same place that you were before. And what's going to happen to the target? Well, maybe you did it. Right. Well, you don't seem to be hurt. It's like when the target calls the police and says, oh, somebody broke into my house and moved my couch over to the other side of the room. And they're like, "Oh, really? Wow, what else did they do? Oh, I think they were in my fridge and they moved my barbecue sauce down where the steak sauce was supposed to be." Oh, well, the old steak sauce bandit. Yeah, yeah, we've heard of these guys. And you know, the one you haven't been hurt. Oh, this they broke in, but they didn't destroy anything, huh? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I made a video about that one time. I heard a story about a guy who they got into his house and they opened up the freezer door and just thawed out all his fish sticks, you know. And what are you gonna do, right? You got the device. There's nothing seems to be wrong with you, or at least things that you can't prove, like targets who, are victims of maybe directed energy weapons or so. You know, they don't have any proof. And what's going to happen? Well, maybe you're just doing it to yourself. Maybe, maybe you're just crazy, right? Why would all these people be after you? Why would someone do this to you? Are you special? Of course, then you run into the same thing, and then you're faced with the classic dilemma of the target. The people that are in on it, the people that don't know. Yeah. Bad place to be. And that's a good question though, because we've all done it. You know, I remember when I first started experiencing this, I would get phone calls. I remember one time I was in my house and I was getting a lot of that directed conversations. A lot of things were going on, and I was, by golly, I was tearing some stuff apart. I was like, I'm gonna find this. I know it's in here somewhere, And I got a phone call, and it was one of the people that were doing that. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing? Looking for something? Huh? Oh, well, just." And of course, there you are, you know. And I was like, "Oh, what you talking about? What do you mean? Am I looking for something?" Oh, I just thought maybe you were trying to find something. I mean, it gets that weird for targets. And then of course that just fuels the fire, and there the targeted is individual is. Some of them will start tearing stuff apart. There's holes in the drywall. Everything's ripped apart, man. Tinfoil all over the walls. Cameras everywhere. They haven't slept in a week, and that's about the time they start doing welfare checks on you. Of course, a lot of targets deal with infiltrators maybe that are close to them. Of course, they set those things up. That's, yeah, a classic dilemma that targeted individuals deal with. Let's get back into this here. Well, let's see what's going on in the comments. So sorry if I'm not getting your questions. I'm trying to keep up, and I'm trying to make this productive. And let's see what we have. Let's see. Well, Pamela says, I think it had to do with my ex. Yeah, a close infiltrator. That's painful when you deal with people that are close to you that become involved in gang stalking. Abnormal hatred is one of the common personality characteristics of these people who participate in this behavior, and that's my voice matters. Also, made that comment. Yeah, abnormal hatred. That's interesting that you would say that, because and I've talked about the spiritual foundations of this stuff. That's a good point because you do experience, you don't know who these people are. A lot of times, targets are going to be attacked by people they don't know, and unless it's mixed in with threats or whatever, like I've talked about so many times, where targets are accused of being a deviant or they are accused of some type of crime or something, and it's like, oh, now the gloves are off. Now they think I'm some kind of a pervert or a drug dealer or a thief or a murderer or something. Oh my goodness, who knows what they're going to do to me now? But a lot of times it's not like that, and most targets haven't done anything anyway. You know, but they have that hate. That's one thing in common, right? That all these perps have, and some of them display it in a way where it's very obvious. And I think it's to scare the target. And I would agree. They do have that trait. They have an abnormal hatred or even a hostility towards religious things, unless they're masquerading as someone who's a believer, right? A lot of times you'll deal with that. I've talked about those. Those guys are scary. you know. Ooh, you don't see them coming. You just until it's too late. I've got the bite marks on my rear end to prove it. Let's get back into the comments here. I'm trying to scan through here, and I apologize if I'm not getting to your stuff. And my voice matters also. So over the years, one of the observations I've made is that their goal is to get you to have poor judgment and poor decision making. Oh, absolutely. The dysfunction that the target experiences, along with the distractions and everything, is specifically for those things, not only for the accusation gaslighting that eventually happens to them. What's wrong with you? We think you're starting to lose it. What's wrong? What's your deal? You know, you need to see a doctor. Huh? You got to go see a professional. Maybe you need some professional help. Having some trouble with your emotional life. And of course, the dysfunction starts to accumulate in the target's life because of all the things that are happening to them and making poor decisions. Yeah, because of, you can be provoked as well. And when you're provoked, when you become emotional, when you're in that fight or flight, well, you're not making decisions right. Your whole brain is kind of deactivated, right? And if you're a regular target, you're dealing with all this stress and anxiety and all those things. You are deactivated. Your brain is not functioning properly, and as an effect, you're going to make poor decisions. It's the same thing as trash talk in sports. What happens? What happens when that starts to affect someone who's a professional athlete? They end up screwing up. It's pretty bad. It's a very effective technique. Let's take a look at some more things here. Let's see what's going on. Looks like we have some dialogue. I'll leave that alone. And let's see here. Do not respond. Do not react. Do not be provoked. No response. Larry, you are so right. And if we could all follow those protocols that you just laid out, we'd survive this. I've talked about that. Reacting is not good, and I've done it. I've made the mistakes. I try not to, but we're human. Okay, that's another thing I'd like to say, that if you do, and you're going to get angry, you're gonna make mistakes. You're going to react. You're going to make a poor decision, but don't ever do their job for them, and that is to torment you, to accuse you, to torture you. Don't ever do their job for them. Okay. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Never forget how you got to where you are. That's one of the things that I found in my life, that things, they get off kilter. You get off the rail, and if you start beating yourself over the back, man, if you start being critical of yourself, it's you're just doing their job for them, man. And it's easy for targets, after they've been experiencing the campaign of gang stalking over time, to forget how they became the way they are. How'd you get paranoid? What's wrong with you? Well, gee, really? If you're a classic target, I'm surprised that you've survived these things, let alone wondering why you're nervous or paranoid or apprehensive, or that you become triggered. You know, yeah, that's one of the effects of gang stalking. Never do their job for them. Let's take a look and see what else is in the comments. Okay. Hmm. Wouldn't wouldn't making public videos exposing gang stalking cause a target to become more heavily targeted? Well, that's a good question. I've wondered that. In fact, I erased a bunch of videos back in 2021 because of some things that were happening. I'm not going to go into those. There's really no need to. That's a good question, and I've wondered that before. I mean, I'm in a place where maybe I shouldn't even say anything at all. But I'm going to tell you something right now. There are a lot of people who have contacted me and said, "Man, your videos are helping me out. The things that you were talking about helped me get through some very difficult times." And to me, well, that makes it worth it. Okay, People have accused me of being a big mouth, and maybe some of that is true. Okay. But I try to be professional. I try not to swear in my live streams. I try to be as productive as possible. I'll admit that I do this for myself as well as the people. Okay. It's therapy for me, and it's educational for others, hopefully. And just the fact that people have contacted me and told me that I've helped them out, well, it's worth it. Okay. And yes, you can be targeted a lot more heavily. Yes, absolutely. I've referenced the fact before that there is a hunting party out there in the targeted individual community. I know who they are, and I deal with them, and sometimes they even pop in here. Okay, I know who they are. You know, like I've said before, if we got to play this game, we're going to play it. No getting out of it. I'd like to think that they will realize the danger that they're in as targets. Of course, everybody's affected by this, and it's not something that I'm not the aggressor. That's one of the rules that I've noticed in this little cosmic game that we are playing, is that when people go out of their way to harass someone, they are breaking all those rules. And when something happens, well, you were kind of asking for it. There's really no getting out of it. If you're minding your own business, you're not attacking someone or whatever. Well, that's different. That's another reason why I don't mention names. Okay, I do give advice on the channel, and I warn people about certain scenarios and things that they need to be careful of. Okay, that's as far as I'm gonna go with it, because that's the way it is. It's like a lot of the people that make videos about false teachers in the religious community. I'm not Walker Texas Ranger. Okay, if I believe somebody's preaching something that's false, something, I'll make a video, and I'll say this is why this concept is wrong, or this is why this doctrine is wrong, and I'll leave people out of it. Same thing with the targets, and same thing with people who are masquerading in the targeted individual community. You People are using their discernment. They can get advice from me, and if they use it, it shouldn't matter. If you're filling out affidavits for some supposed lawsuit out there and giving out personal information, I told you not to. Okay. That's really all you need. When you see people doing that or talking about certain things, right there, it's a red flag. Okay, be careful. Just listen to the advice. I don't have to give names. You know. Let's get back into the comments. Oh, let's see here. Looks like we're talking about altercations with individuals. I'm gonna leave that alone. Oh, that's good. I do not understand how someone could be so obsessed with another human being. Things that my mind can't comprehend. That question or that comment actually comes from My Voice Matters also, and that's one of the things that a lot of targets will talk about. Right? It seems mysterious to them. Why are what you doing coming after me all the time for? Why do you why do you got your stick your fingers in my pudding? Get the hell out of here. Bug off. Right? It's like those perps out there that are always making comments about my live stream or about my videos. Well, just get the hell away from me. You know, go do something else with yourself. Really? There's nothing else out there for you to do than to become involved in this. I mean, and one of the things that I always illustrate when I talk about that is they could be doing anything with their time. It's one thing to be a targeted individual and to be interested in these things and to look into them and to ponder what's going on, to be part of a community, to look at other people's experiences and to relate with them. Right? It's kind of a communal thing, and you have a reason to be here, and it's legitimate. But those guys, what the hell is wrong with you, man? You get paid or something? If not, you got to be nuts, right? Especially those guys that accuse targeted individuals of being mentally ill, and then they get all hostile with them, and it's like, gosh, I mean, how contradictive can you be? It'd be like walking into a home for mentally handicapped people and slamming down a calculus book and telling everybody how stupid they are. Um, really? I don't know. And it does give away some of the pathologies that are involved in these people, right? Not only the fact that they can be, I don't know, so intrusive and seem to be obsessed or whatever, but the fact that they're so hostile, it's really it is mysterious. I'll give you that one. Let's see what else is out there in the comments. Yeah, well, like I said before, when I was talking about the people who get paid for this and everything, that's well, you can kind of see how they become involved in it. They're doing it for money. It's not personal. But these other people, man, they are really crazy people. A lot of people have mentioned that to me. Are you ever worried, Doc, that you're going to be, dealing with someone who's got some type of legitimate mental illness or whatever, and that maybe some of these people are crazy or whatever? And I don't worry about that. I assume that all the people that I'm dealing with are suffering from legitimate harassment scenarios, and even if they're not, I believe that they're being oppressed in some way, and there's a reason why they are the way they are. And I would believe that my advice, hopefully, of being critical and processing information in a way that's productive, not reacting, focusing on things that are going to help you improve your life, things that you can control, things that are productive, would really help them out either way, right? I'm not trying to help sensitize anyone. I'm not trying to make anybody any more paranoid than they are already. I'm just trying to help people out, and it's a social outlet for me. It's very simple. So that's how I would look at that. Dublin Fitzpatrick says that she believes that she has an anger issue. Okay, well that's honest. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. I'm assuming that you have a tendency to become emotionally angry when things happen to you. Now, are you talking about the fact that it is becoming an increasing response? Because I've noticed that I have that problem. I notice a lot of targets are going to deal with the reciprocity of the frustration, of the emotional responses, of the triggering, and so on and so forth. It accumulates over time. At first, you're trying to figure out what's wrong with people. You're trying to figure out what their deal is, and then it gets to a point where there's anger involved. You're not just perplexed. You are not just mystified by these things or trying to figure out how or why or whatever. Now it starts to build, and it becomes a response of anger. That's only natural, Dublin. Okay. And then the fact that you see that, well, that's productive. Okay. And that's one of the ways that they manipulate all of us. And as long as you realize that, and as long as you realize the motive, well, you can cancel that out at least a little bit, if nothing else. And it's something I think we're all working on. I'm definitely working on it, man. I hear you. I hear you. Okay, let's see here. Interesting. Let's see. Okay. Well, anybody have any new aspects to introduce into this discussion of the perp? We've talked about their disguise. We talked about their obvious pathology. We've talked about the fact that for some, it's not a personal thing. It's a monetized scenario. They're just trying to make some cash. We've talked about how there's frustration and things can be involved that just are mystifying. We've talked about the fact that they are masquerading through their existence now. If you've looked into these individuals who you are sure with strict criteria, well, it's what they're doing. You've looked at their lives and it's like, wow, the people around them don't know. They've just kind of moved on, and it's like they buried a dead body and just forgot about what happened. And there you are in the past, with your tombstone sticking up, and they just move along and act like nothing happened. You know, they don't remember, they don't recall, they will not acknowledge, and that's okay. Whatever. I think you know. I think it's obvious to say that eventually it's going to be resurrected. There's going to be a resurrection of all those things, and unless people are in Christ, unless they have sought the forgiveness of God and the provision that He has provided for all people who would submit to Him, well, there's going to be a resurrection of a lot of things. Let's take a look at the comments again. Well, Larry, I agree with you on your in your comments, and thanks for participating in the live stream here. Targeted tyranny. The time you lose everything, sometimes family members, relationships, it can cause lots of anger, not including the harassment. Absolutely. It's something that all targets are dealing with. Well, guys, it's getting late and I do have to get up and go to work tomorrow. There's a lot of people on the live stream. Glad to see y'all participating. Glad to see all the people here. And hopefully it's been educational. Hopefully it's been entertaining. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody who showed up. And I'd also like to thank people who hit the like button. Let's get this out there. Smash that like button. And I would like to thank everyone who supports the channel. God bless you. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.